We must defend the truth at all costs, even if we return to being only 12. Saint John Paul II.
Let us embark on a fascinating journey through the life of one of the greatest theologians of the Catholic Church, Saint Augustine. Imagine a young man marked by rebellion, living a life of excess and uncertainty, transforming into a spiritual giant whose teachings still echo today. Did you know that Saint Augustine, one of the Church Fathers, had a rebellious youth? In this video, we will explore each stage of his life and discover how he became one of the greatest saints in history. This video was prepared with dedication, using historical images, impactful quotes, and in-depth analyses of Augustine's writings. Prepare yourself for a journey through time, learning about the life and lessons left by this great saint. Childhood and education. Saint Augustine was born in Tagaste, North Africa, in 354 AD. Son of Patricius, a pagan, and Monica, a devout Christian, he was exposed to two contrasting worldviews. His mother, Saint Monica, had a significant influence on his spiritual life, planting the seeds of faith in his heart. At the age of 11, Augustine was sent to school in Madura, where he received a classical education. He studied grammar, rhetoric, and literature, standing out for his brilliant intellect and skill with words. Despite his formal education, Augustine began to drift away from his mother's Christian teachings and question his faith. Fascinated by philosophical ideas, he sought answers in various systems of thought, but none seemed to satisfy his quest for truth and purpose. This period marked the beginning of his long journey in search of truth. In his youth, Augustine became deeply involved with Manichaeism, a sect that offered a dualistic explanation of good and evil. This philosophy attracted him by promising clear answers to his existential questions, and he spent 9 years as a Manichaean, convinced he had found a way to understand the universe. During this time, Augustine lived a life of excess and an incessant pursuit of worldly pleasures. He had a son out of wedlock and maintained a lifestyle that often conflicted with Christian teachings. Although he sought truth, his actions reflected a restless heart and a conflicted spirit. Eventually, Manichaeism failed to satisfy Augustine's thirst for knowledge and truth. He began to question its doctrines and feel an inner void that nothing seemed to fill. His disillusionment with Manichaeism marked the beginning of a new phase in his spiritual quest, where he became increasingly open to the truths of Christianity. During this tumultuous period, Saint Monica never ceased to pray for her son. A woman of profound faith, she firmly believed that God had a plan for Augustine. Her constant prayers and tears demonstrated her unshakable hope and love. Saint Monica followed Augustine in his relocations, seeking to be close to him and positively influence him. In Milan, she found a powerful ally in Saint Ambrose for Augustine's conversion. Her conversations with Augustine and her example of Christian living planted seeds that would later germinate. Saint Monica's role in Augustine's conversion was crucial. Her persistence in prayer and unwavering faith were essential for Augustine to finally open himself to God's grace. She is an example of maternal love and fervent intercession, showing how a mother's faith can profoundly influence her children's lives. The great change in Augustine's life came when he moved to Milan and met Saint Ambrose, the bishop of the city. Ambrose was a man of great wisdom and eloquence, whose sermons deeply touched those who heard him. Initially attracted by Ambrose's rhetorical skill, Augustine began to attend his homilies. Gradually, Augustine realized that the answers he had been seeking could be found in the Christian faith. Ambrose's sermons not only refuted Manichaean arguments, but also presented a coherent and profound vision of truth. Augustine was won over, not only by logic, but by the beauty of the Christian message. This encounter was a turning point in Augustine's life. He began to read the scriptures with a new perspective and reflect deeply on his life and beliefs. Ambrose's role was crucial, guiding Augustine intellectually and spiritually, paving the way for his conversion. Conversion to Christianity. The mystical experience that led to Augustine's conversion occurred in a garden in Milan. He was in a state of great internal conflict, struggling with his desires and the truth that was beginning to reveal itself to him. Sitting under a fig tree, he heard a child's voice singing "Toli, leg, take and read." Augustine interpreted these words as a divine call. He picked up a book of St. Paul's epistles that was nearby and read the first passage he found. Not in orgies and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy, but clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ. Romans 13:13-14. These words touched his heart deeply. This experience marked the moment of his conversion. Augustine decided to abandon his life of sin and dedicate himself entirely to God. He was baptized by St. Ambrose on Easter of 387 AD, a new beginning that would transform not only his life, but also the history of the Church. After his conversion, Augustine returned to Africa, where he planned to live a life of retreat and contemplation. He sold his properties and donated the money to the poor, dedicating himself entirely to prayer, study, and writing. This period was crucial for the development of his theological ideas. In 391 AD, Augustine was ordained a priest in Hippo, and 4 years later, he became bishop of the city. His preaching and leadership were marked by an incessant search for truth and the spiritual well-being of his community. He fought against heresies and worked tirelessly to strengthen the Christian faith among the faithful. Augustine's baptism was not just a personal change, but also a new beginning for the Church, which gained one of its greatest defenders and thinkers. His commitment to faith and his ability to communicate profound truths in an accessible way made him a central figure in the history of Christianity. One of St. Augustine's greatest legacies is his Confessions, a book that narrates his spiritual journey and search for God. Written as a prayer to God, the Confessions are a deep reflection on sin, grace, and redemption, offering an intimate look into his soul and struggles. In this book, Augustine shares his life experiences, doubts, and spiritual discoveries. He speaks openly about his sins and mistakes, but also about God's infinite mercy that led him to conversion. The Confessions are a powerful testimony of transformation and faith. Augustine's Confessions are not just an autobiographical account, but also a theological work that continues to inspire Christians throughout the centuries. His reflections on human nature, the search for truth, and divine grace are relevant today, offering wisdom and comfort to those who seek God.
Embark on a spiritual journey with our new ebook, 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. This inspiring collection delves into the lives of 50 revered saints, offering their powerful stories and heartfelt prayers to guide you towards divine intervention. Perfect for personal reflection or group study, this ebook is a must-have for every devout Catholic. Enhance your faith and discover the strength of these saintly figures. Find the download link in the pinned comment below.
Theological contributions. Among St. Augustine's many works, two stand out particularly: Confessions and the City of God. The Confessions are a personal and spiritual account that narrates his life from childhood to his conversion and beyond. This book offers an intimate view of his spiritual journey and his reflections on human nature and divine grace. The City of God is another monumental work, written in response to the fall of Rome. In this book, Augustine defends Christianity against accusations of being responsible for the decline of the Roman Empire. He develops a philosophy of history that contrasts the city of God, based on the love of God, with the city of man, based on the love of self. These works influenced not only Christian theology but also Western philosophy. They continue to be studied and revered for their depth, clarity, and relevance. Through his words, Augustine managed to communicate eternal truths that still resonate strongly in the minds and hearts of modern readers. Saint Augustine developed several theological doctrines that became pillars of Christian thought. One of the most influential is the doctrine of original sin, which postulates that all humans are born with a sinful nature due to the sin of Adam and Eve. This idea had a profound impact on the theology of salvation and the understanding of the need for divine grace. Additionally, Augustine elaborated a theology of grace that emphasized the total dependence of humans on God's grace to achieve salvation. He argued that grace is an undeserved gift from God, necessary to overcome the corruption of original sin and live a life according to the divine will. His ideas on grace and predestination profoundly influenced both Catholic and Protestant theology. Augustine also contributed to the philosophy of history, arguing that human history is a continuous struggle between the forces of good and evil, represented by the city of God and the city of man. This theological vision of history provided a framework for understanding historical events as part of a greater divine plan, giving spiritual meaning to the historical narrative. Throughout his life, Augustine faced various heresies that threatened Christian orthodoxy. One of the most significant was Pelagianism, which denied the doctrine of original sin and claimed that humans could achieve salvation through their efforts without the need for divine grace. Augustine vigorously opposed this heresy, defending the doctrine of grace and the necessity of divine intervention in human salvation. Augustine also confronted Donatism, a movement that held that the efficacy of the sacraments depended on the holiness of the minister administering them. Augustine argued that the validity of the sacraments depended on the action of Christ and the Church, not the personal purity of the ministers, reinforcing the idea that divine grace operated independently of human flaws. His ability to articulate and defend Christian orthodoxy against these and other heresies consolidated his reputation as one of the Church's foremost theologians. He not only refuted heretical arguments, but also offered a deeper and more coherent understanding of the Christian faith, strengthening the Church's doctrine and practice. Legacy and contemporary relevance. Saint Augustine's impact on the Catholic Church is immense. His works shaped medieval theology and continue to influence theological thought to this day. He was proclaimed a Doctor of the Church, a title that recognizes his exceptional contribution to Christian doctrine. His ideas on grace, sin, and salvation are taught and revered in seminaries and universities worldwide. In addition to his theological contributions, Augustine also influenced the Church's liturgy and spirituality. His reflections on prayer, meditation, and communal life enriched the religious practice of the faithful. He inspired generations of saints and mystics who followed his teachings and sought to live according to his ideas. Augustine is also a central figure in ecumenical dialogue, respected by both Catholics and Protestants. His works are studied by theologians of various Christian traditions who recognize his wisdom and spiritual depth. His influence transcends denominational boundaries, making him a true bridge between different currents of Christianity. Saint Augustine's ideas continue to be relevant in the contemporary world. His writings on human nature and the search for truth resonate with people facing existential and spiritual questions. In a world marked by uncertainties and conflicts, his reflections on divine grace and redemption offer hope and guidance. Augustine is also relevant to modern philosophical and ethical debates. His ideas on the relationship between faith and reason, the nature of good and evil, and the importance of social justice are discussed in academic and popular contexts. He continues to inspire thinkers and leaders who seek answers to the moral and spiritual challenges of our time. Moreover, Augustine's life is a powerful testimony of personal transformation. His journey from rebellion to sainthood inspires those struggling with their own faults and seeking a life more aligned with Christian values. His story demonstrates that a sincere search for truth and divine grace can lead to profound life change. Saint Augustine continues to inspire the faithful and scholars around the world. His works are a source of meditation and study, guiding Christians on their spiritual journey. Many find in his Confessions a mirror for their struggles and a guide for conversion and holiness. Contemporary stories of conversion and transformation often mention Augustine's influence. People of all ages and backgrounds find comfort and inspiration in his trajectory, seeing in him an example of how God can work wonders in the lives of those who open themselves to his grace. Augustine teaches us that it is never too late to seek God, and that true wisdom comes from humility and openness to the divine. His life and teachings continue to be a beacon of light for those seeking a life of faith, hope, and love. Saint Augustine, with his life marked by an incessant search for truth and his profound conversion, shows us that divine grace can transform even the most restless hearts. His teachings and writings continue to guide and inspire the faithful, offering answers and hope in times of doubt and uncertainty. His journey is a powerful testimony that it is never too late to open oneself to God's action in our lives. If you were inspired by Saint Augustine's story, don't miss our next video about another great saint, the miracle of Saint Benedict, the poison chalice. Discover how Saint Benedict, through his unwavering faith, performed one of the most impressive miracles in the history of the Church. Click on the video that appears on the screen to continue your journey of faith and inspiration with the saints who shaped the history of Christianity.